Happy Halloween, everybody. It is October 31st when we are doing our release for this episode, but of course this was just recorded up previously, and we, of course, went through and did all the editing. But if you're watching it after Halloween, it's great. Glad you could join us for some more modern action. We've got Indomitable Creativity versus Amulet Titan in this best of three match from our LGS at Comic Kung Fu. So it should be a pretty cool, exciting match between these two players. Our creativity player, of course, going to be mulliganing down here. And if you aren't subscribed yet, consider subscribing. We got a special bonus episode interview coming out on Saturday, this coming Saturday, where we interview MTG Nerd Girl. Talk about streaming, talk about content creation, talk about limited format, talking about creating a commander show, because of course she helped with the creation of the show Decked Out, one of very entertaining shows. So if you want to learn a little bit more about her career in content creation and what that looks like, as well as just kind of talking about streaming and all that kind of good stuff, you check out that episode coming up. Of course, certain things like that, as well as these commentary matches, do get added up and added up early if you are a kind of one of those super members on the channel. There's a link in the description if anybody wanted to care about that. Way to kind of just show extra support for the channel, but really just kind of spreading the word, letting people know about the channel, the videos. That's a great way to be able to just show support for the price of for free. And we appreciate you all hanging out with us as we get into it and start going through some gaming. So it looks like we had to mulligan down to 5 for this one. So the debate about what to keep, what to put back. So, and if you're interested in wanting to know about the deck list, there's the Moxfiled link. But always just feel free, leave a comment, and we can be able to post up directly to you if you are interested in the deck list. But we're going to go through. We'll see how these players start navigating this. The turn 1 Urza Saga is a scary start if you're facing against an Amulet Titan player, but not as scary as like a turn 1 Amulet. So we're in this kind of like, all right, I have a clock. Essentially 3 turns from now when there will be an Amulet online and things can go one of 2 ways. Either it'll be a huge explosion and I just die, or it'll be a huge explosion setting up for the inevitable death the following turn. So the clock is currently ticking for our creativity player to assemble enough pieces here to either delay, stop this from happening, or rush up to their own combo, if you will, of casting an Indomitable Creativity to kind of be able to find a scary token, or turn your tokens into a scary creature like Archon of Cruelty. But we're going for all Planeswalkers all the time right now. Ren and 6 out to help get us some lands back. We've got our Teferi, Time Raveler to at least do some bouncing and delaying, which is great. We've talked about kind of one of the ways to be able to fight against a deck is to either going to go for disruption strategies, and this is one of the ways to do it, and that's kind of using the bounce effect on the land there. Urza Saga is an enchantment. Our first token has arrived with our Dwarven Mines. Amulet Titan just kind of in the land go. We're in that kind of sit back, set up stages here. And now we can kind of stare down and be worried about the next stages. All right, and a Fable of the Mirror Breaker coming out as well. So we, of course, get another token. This one's a 2/2 that helps us be able to create treasure tokens. So, again, increasing our token generation. And then just kind of help cycle through our deck a little bit as we kind of go through the different modes there. But all right. Basic Forest, and casting for 3 means it's most likely, yep, there's the Dryad. Dryad of Elysium Grove, turning all of our lands into every basic land type and allowing us to have an extra land drop here. So we're doing the kind of images on the left, bottom side, and images on the right, upper side to kind of try to show you. Our best is, I'm still trying to navigate the best way to show you guys the card images and the stuff that an Amulet player is playing, because their lands are so important. Which lands they play matter. So we see a discard 2, draw 2, and a Spell Pierce there. Uptick in, get a land back, player land. kind of the benefit of having that mirror breaker there so that we can be able to discard a land and get it right back with Ren. There's still Teferi hidden up at the top, but we do have our kind of life total track. Again, we'll do our best to keep track of life. If we mess up the life totals, let me know. This is the downside of marking it down ourselves. You can see the players have that pad and paper there, and they're tracking and keeping track of everything going on themselves, but I don't have access to their pad and paper, so I'm doing the best I can to try to track it myself. All right, what are we setting up for? Yeah, okay. Leyline Binding, let's just kind of get rid of, which is really smart. The Dryad of Elysium Grove sets up a line for Amulet players to win through the Valakut, right? So they can be able to basically turn all their lands into mountains. So every time that you're getting landfall triggers, if you have enough, right, you need 5 for your Valakut, you're just going to start sitting here and lightning bolting your opponent every single time. Boom, 3 damage, 3 damage, 3 damage. So getting rid of that is a crucial thing to disrupt and stop your opponent. A secondary fable here. So we're missing our Indomitable Creativity. We're still in the setup mode that we can kind of get away with this plan, especially that we are, disrupting what our opponent is doing. All right. Urza Saga does pop. You always stop and say, search good. Yes, search is good. Let's do some searching for Amulet. We talked about this. This is that scary turn. It took much longer than that 3 turns that we were originally doing because of the Teferi bounce there, which is still over in the corner, which does make a big difference on what your opponent can and cannot cast. We still have a colorless floating. You can see that dice there. No longer used, so casting for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. I guess we're using that one lone dice over there still, so we still have that colorless there. There's Valakut. Amulet will let us untap it. We'll do some tapping using that last colorless. Green and red. Hey, let's try to rumble here. Reveal top 4 cards of your library. Of course, you got to put one of those permanents into your hand. And there's a Spell Pierce to fight against it because there was only 1 mana left available for that. We've talked about in previous games how, maybe you should wait and fight against the Rumble. Not fight the Rumble, fight what they get. But because you have the Spell Pierce, that's the perfect spell to be able to use to fight against a Rumble player. Also, that's that big setup. So the Amulet came out. We had our big setup turn. We attempted to use the Rumble. We've got our Dryad. So we've got the Valakut. So we see the line that's getting constructed right now for our Titan player. Their goal is to be able to just dump a bunch of land soon and go for that. Teferi is going to be useful here, and we'll be able to bounce that back to the hand. Again, delay is the name of the game. But we've got quite a bit of tokens here. You see the kind of setup here, counting, keeping track of the amount of mana, keeping track about the tokens. And swing in 5 damage. Let's do some fetching, get another Dwarven Mine coming up so we can be able to do a nice little increase in our dwarf tokens. And now we're counting. Look at this. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the danger mode. Whenever your opponent starts counting, be aware, be scared. Let's creativity for 3 this time. So destroying X target artifacts or creatures for each permanent destroyed this way. Its controller reveals cards from the top of their library for a artifact or creature card and then put that into play. So we're going to start getting a little bit of reveal up at the top here. So there's going to be, of course, lots of lands, lots of instants, lots of enchantments, lots of planeswalkers, and you'll see very few creatures there. Here's the first one, Archon of Cruelty. It's got, of course, our ETB effect. You can be able to deal 3 damage to your opponent, have them sacrifice a creature, have you, of course, gain a life, well, specifically 3, but we've done this 3 times, so we're going to keep going. There's our second one, and there's our third one. So we're going to hit, and that's going to do a huge drain on our opponents. Now, two treasures left. We've already had our combat. So there is a line here, looking back, that I see. All right, we have our flipped Mirror Breaker, the reflection of Kiki Jiki's on the battlefield. Costs 1 mana. Create a token that's a copy of another target non-legendary creature that you control, except it has haste, sacked at the beginning of the next end step. Make a copy of the Archon, and that would be the ETB, deal the 3 damage, the last 3 damage needed. But it's okay. You know, this is kind of it's hard to keep track of everything. Also, we're going to be doing this Renin 6, activate this ultimate here. Here's this emblem, boom. So now everything in our graveyard has retrace, so we could be able to cast our spells again by discarding lands. This is kind of the safe bet, though, of just like the line that our creativity player sees here is, I have a reprieve in hand, I've got 2 mana, my goal is to stop and delay you from winning through this. So we know the Dryad's going to be coming out here. There is, of course, the Leyline Binding in hand as well that we can go for. So that is kind of the lines that we're approaching. This is a crazy card. Smuggler Surprise. So we're going for that mill 4. You can put 2 creatures or land cards from among the mill cards into your hand. So we get a Vesuva and we get a Forest. Vesuva as our land off of Dryad. It's going to become a copy of Valakut. So we're going through the motions here of like, let's try to set up and establish stuff. If a specific trigger came up that we were worried about, we would have, of course, responded and done a Leyline Binding or something like that, or a reprieve. But we were perfectly fine. It's like, okay, I have 3 Archons here. What do you got here? So our creativity player does end up taking game number 1. Amulet Titan player is going to be jumping into the sideboard and will be going first here, which does make a huge difference. We've talked about how much of a difference it makes in 60-card formats, and it is huge. We are also going to be mulliganing down to 6, it looks like. Heavy Planeswalker opening as well for our creativity player. Ooh, we talked about this in game 1, how scary of a turn 1 Urza is. Pretty scary, but not as scary as our Amulet. And that's going to at least get the delay happening with our Static Prism. So when you're fighting against certain decks, it's all about how are you going to delay and stop them. Where the Amulet Titan's goal in this matchup is very different. That's like, how fast can I get to the pieces that I need to kill you, right? Here's a Rumble. We have no way to respond, so this is the difference. We're really like getting all of our stuff out the way that we want. See quite a few lands there. Probably, if we needed the bounce land, which we don't have access to, we got a Surveil land and our Shifting Woodlands, which makes the most sense to be able to grab, because that can turn into a permanent from your graveyard and get things going crazy. So if your opponent starts trying to kill your stuff, or counter your stuff, or do these things to mess with your stuff, as long as it's not exiled with like Leyline Binding, we have ways to interact and stop our opponent. But Renin 6 is going to be coming out. Pay our energy to keep delaying, but there's the next one happening right now. Going to get another Amulet of Vigor out onto the battlefield off the Urza Saga. So that is going to be even scarier, because you essentially have 2 turns until there's 2 amulets out, and at that point it's going to be so hard to fight through. Okay, our first bounce land hitting the field. We have a blue and a green floating. Bounce our forest back. What are we going with? Okay, yep, that'll do it. The One Ring. Hidden up at the top of the screen there, but we are going to see just how many cards we've... It's all about the One Ring right now, right? If you're playing Modern, that's the card that you need to be the most worried about. I mean, some people are playing things like Orcish Bowmasters and stuff like that to try to do their best to mitigate it. A lot of people are trying to fight it with like Consigned to Memory and going that route. Right now we have a Teferi. I mean, you there's no threats out right now, so you can get away with successfully down ticking. Yeah, we're going to bounce that. Of course, Amulet back to the hand, get us to draw a card, and we're kind of building up for a setup here. Both players setting up and trying to kind of navigate. We'll see how many cards are going to start getting drawn off the One Ring, though. Just kidding. It's the forest. And there's the Dryad. Do some tapping for an Amulet. So yeah, just another setup turn here, which if you're on the creativity side, you're feeling okay about, because it's like, okay, this gives me a chance to set myself up to build towards my own plans. How well is this going to work? We'll see. We'll see, because now there's 2 Amulets out, and it's like you know you have to deal with the Dryad. You know that you have to deal with the Amulets, but unless you have like a Wrath of Skies, you're going to be in a really tough spot. And creativity doesn't run Wrath of Skies, in case you're wondering. Maybe you could, but we do see a new card. I say new card, a newer card that players have been testing out that is pretty useful in this situation, which is the Paw Patch Formation here. Be able to destroy target creature flying, destroy target enchantment, or draw a card and create a food token. And we'll see the destruction of the enchantment of our lovely little Dryad there. But it's, you know, you have to do that because there's already one Amulet. And killing one doesn't really stop you from dying. Killing the Dryad does prevent you from dying to the Valakut lines. But you notice how the Shifting Woodlands is kind of set over to the side. That's kind of the indication of, like, depending on what the drop is for the land, there could be a Dryad being essentially reanimated from the graveyard here. All right, here's our land. We're going to generate a bunch of mana. Yep, there's the activation of the Woodlands. Become a copy of our Dryad of Elysium Groves, so that means we get another land drop, and we are able to start having our lands tap for any color. Which deck are you more interested in learning about? Do you like the lines that the Amulet players are going for? Do you like the creativity lines? Would you rather be on the delay disrupt strategy that creativity's on? Or would you be more interested in just going, hey, this is my lines, I'm just going to play my game and fight through the hate? Because they're very unique and interesting play styles that you have to kind of navigate, and once you kind of get used to it, like, they can be very entertaining and enjoyable to pilot those specific decks. Okay, so here's our first little mishap and mistake that happens in the game. Orm's Chant. Instant. You can be able to make it so players cannot activate any spells, and then if you kick it, they can't attack. But we have Teferi, Time Raveler, here. And look, he's even upticking it, so it's like this very specific mishap. The instant cannot happen. The players do catch it in a little bit. It doesn't really make any impact for the game at all, but it is one thing to note is there's a lot on the board, and things get a little bit crazy as the game starts to progress, so like having these little mistakes happens. That's why we're also recording it up and broadcasting this game so you guys can learn from these little mishaps and mistakes. We're so used to the fairy being a protection piece, and the biggest way it's protecting us is to make sure that you can't be able to cast stuff at instant speed. So it shuts down control players. Like it's a very good card. But you see Creativity in hand. Ah, there it is. It said you should not have been able to cast the chant. And also part of it is the dice is huge, so it's like covering the art. So it's like one of those, oh, wait a minute, you're right. I couldn't have done that. There's the Creativity. So we're okay. We can be able to fire it off, no problem. There's an Alpine Moon in hand right now. All right, what are we revealing? Now, this is another interesting thing. I am not a Creativity player, but the thing that I've noticed, and maybe a Creativity player can speak for this more, is the sideboard plans of basically pivoting in Game 2 from Archons into your sideboard creatures and just going like a brand new package of creatures. And in this case, we're seeing 2 Terrestodons. Terrestodons are having, of course, ETB that you'll be able to destroy any permanents that are on the battlefield. If you do, you are able to create some 3/3 elephants for each one, so you get to basically pick up to 3. So we see here's the first one. Let's get rid of Shifting Woodlands. Let's get rid of your 2 amulets. The other option is we want to try to get rid of the Valakut here, but you notice that our Creativity player is picking their own stuff as well. Yeah, so they're blowing it up just to make sure that they don't die to a bunch of 3/3 elephants charging at them. They basically have a wall to kind of resist and fight over this. So we've got 2 9/9s, and there we see boom, boom, boom. So, of course, 6 targets available, picking 2 to have other blockers available, especially because you're at 10 life. You need to have at least something to help you out there. So I like that, but it's like it makes me nervous seeing the Valakut out, especially because the One Ring is still on the board and still drawing cards. But there's our Dryad. So hey, killing the Dryad didn't make too much of a difference. All right, Forest, doing some more counting. All right, another Forest. And we're just sort of in the setup mode here. Again, building up and preparing for the kind of big explosion that's setting up in the next couple turns. So Creativity now has to kind of establish themselves in another way. We do have the Alpine Moon. So Alpine Moon, for those that aren't familiar, is not being played yet, but it would be able to shut off the Valakut a bit. So Alpine Moon is a 1 red enchantment there that says choose a non-basic land card name. Lands your opponent control with the chosen name. Lose all land types and abilities, and they gain add 1 mana of any color. I think that works that way, right? You have it enter, and you're like, I'm going to name Valakut. And so Valakut no longer has any abilities. So it no longer has that ability to be able to deal 3 damage, right? If I'm understanding the way the Alpine Moon works, but a judge might be able to explain it better, or people that have used Alpine Moon or used these types of cards before, like been on the receiving end of it, could explain that in better detail. So if you do know that answer, leave a comment. Let me know. Why not use the Alpine Moon? I mean, big part of it, too, is you see the land split here, 2 and 2 like this. We have the reprieve in hand. We're basically trying to stop ourselves from dying here. But I feel like at some point, that's the line our opponent's going for. We need a way to deal with it. And you notice the life totals are just getting chunked from our Amulet player. Part of that is because there's a 1 ring right off of camera here, just like chipping away. This is also that interesting thing to note of like how much board space and card placement players do when it comes to their playmat. Look, see, here's the second valid cut. So that's where it's like, okay, with the Alpine Moon, whenever a mountain enters the battlefield under your control, if you control at least 5 other mountains, you can have it deal 3 damage. Now, that's why I'm wondering, it lose all abilities. It's a triggered ability. It's not an activated ability, it's a triggered ability. So does it work that way to stop you from dying to it? Of course, the triggers will kill off the Teferi, which is really important for basically saying the coast is clear. I can now fight over my opponent using counter spells. Primetime is going to come out here, which will be met with the reprieve, which is the big reason we were saving that. We wanted to have the mana available to do that. And then we're in the stalemate of elephant tokens staring at each other. I'm moving to discard because we've drawn so many cards off the 1 ring. Dropping a 9. Getting a dwarf. All right, another Dwarven Mine. Setting up for another creativity. So are we going for... Oh, okay. Pure attack. Let's do it. We're trying to... Now, none of the elephants have trample. So there's 4 tokens, 4 attackers. We have to block here. So we go trade these 2 elephants off. These 2 elephants are going to be eaten by these 9/9s. And we're set up for another push. I don't know. It's really close right now. Still looking at that Alpine Moon. I want to say that works that way, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. I guess you do, like, if you do the Alpine Moon line and still have your creativity for 1, is that going to be enough? I don't know the other creatures that are still in here. Like, there must be 2 creatures in the deck that we're interested in, because why else would we be messing with things this way? Why would we be debating between the lines of Alpine Moon or not? Let's see. Oh, that's really rough. Okay. That's, yeah, having Teferi gone does really hurt. Okay, so yeah, it looks like I'm pretty sure it works. The Alpine Moon stuff. I guess so. We really needed the 2 tokens to get popped there, but met with the negation does hurt. But now we're in this like, let's draw a million cards off the 1 ring. I want to say we ended up drawing 21 cards this game, which is insane. And just like, I don't know, limit. Even if the 1 ring was limited to a 1 of, which is the thing that I would love to see happen in December. Even if that was the case, it wouldn't have had any impact on the game because it's not like we got to see the chain 1 rings back to back to back. It was just one ring that drew 21 cards. Sheesh. I don't know. The Alpine Moon line, I'm not a creativity player, so I can't sit here and go, ooh, this is the better line. All we can do is look from the information that we have is that, hey, this is a line that's available to stop you from dying. But eventually, if your whole game plan is on not dying, you're missing out on the battle of I need to win the game. And going for the creativity there is like, I'm winning this game. That's the only thing that I can think of there must have been more Archon of Cruelties in the deck, and that you were hoping to hit those triggers and have them die off of the upkeep stuff. And I don't know why does that say 25? They're not at 25 life. They're at 20 life. Hey, yeah, that's what I get for editing videos late at night. And, you know, sometimes mistakes happen. That's going to bother me this whole time. I'm going to fix that right now. We're fixing it. He's at 20 life. Just kidding. He's at 20 life. He actually has 20 life. Now it just looks like a mess. That's okay. We're having fun with it. All right. Let's set up. Again, scary start for our Amulet player. They're really happy about it, having the Amulet out early. We're starting to see the Fable of the Mirror Breaker coming out. No problems. We're less worried about it. It's basically they're trying to generate tokens for their creativity to go off, generate some mana off the treasure. Like, it's all set up on both sides here. Let's start off with a Gruul Turf, generate a red and green, and we're actually just going to bounce that back to our hand. And we have another 1 ring here. Oh, World Soul Rage. This is such a cool card. Deals X damage to any target, and you put X land cards. So we're going to deal 2 damage to kill that token and put 2 lands onto the battlefield here. So bam, we of course get our untap trigger, bounce. Now the forest goes back to hand. So that was a great little delay tactic right there. And accelerate our own game plan. And the coast is clear. We know they can't spell pierce us here. So let's do the Rumble Adventures and be able to find a permanent. Lots of great permanents, among those being those 3 lands. And we're going to be able to grab that, throw the rest into the graveyard there. Ooh, that's rough. We have awesome targets that we want to get. You see that like shrug right there. Yeah, that hurts. So we've got Iona, the Shield of Emeria. It's a 7/7 flying angel. When it enters the battlefield, you're going to choose a color. The, of course, opponent can't cast spells of those colors. So you could be like, I'm going to hit this and cast green, or say green, and they cannot use that. We also had an Archon there. So this is one of those things that makes me wonder. I guess that must have been the other 2 targets, right? If we're assuming that there were the elephants in there, makes sense to have 1 Archon and 1 Iona for 4 targets off of it. I don't know. It's like or is there some other combination of creatures? But that kind of makes the most sense, right? You want to keep at least some number or variations of Archons, and you want to be going for as large of creativity as possible. Where game one, it's all just like rushing up. I'm fine with doing a creativity for one and getting an Archon and just going for that route. Where, this way it's a little different. Oh, Alumra, Bellow of the Woods. This is a newer card, Bloomburrow card specifically. Its power and toughness is going to be equal to the number of lands that you control. And then when it enters, you mill 4 cards and return all land cards from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped, which is really good. Like the fact that you can just start pulling all the lands from your graveyard can get things really scary. So we're going to get the fetch into a Boseiju to get rid of the Amulet, just to, again, delay. That's the path that we're on right now. Let's kind of go that route. All right, so it looks like no other responses. Lumra, Bellow of the Woods is good. It resolves. There's little bunnies in that art. That's pretty great. I don't know. Bloomburrow is such a cool set. All right, so we see our Amulet player already starting to pull the lands. Wait, but he catches himself. Goes, no, I do need to actually do the mill first. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. 2 Pact of Negations, an Amulet, and a Prime Time there. Primeval Titan going to the graveyard. Not what you're hoping for, but we've got a lot of lands. I say a lot. We got, what, 2, 3 back? So not the best hits, but could have been worse. All right, our Mirror Breaker has flipped. No tokens, no creativity. 2 of our targets and threats were discarded, so we're in this weird, awkward spot now. Got another Boseiju that we can use. Yeah, look at the debate. Yeah, let's do it. Let's fight it. Leyline Binding will be able to take that. Of course, we cannot hit Urza's Saga with this because it specifies non-land permanents. But this will let us hit that with a nice another Boseiju going to be popping, knowing that Urza Saga is about to resolve, so we can fight over that, at least with the delay tactics. Now, you can get a basic land type. We are getting basics here, but if you're running the Surveil lands, you're running Shock lands, you are able to find those off of Boseiju. And we know there is a Surveil land in Amulet list, but that's fine. All right. Where are we going from here? Lots of mana available. 2, 4, I don't know, 8. How much are we up to? Too much. Too much when you're sitting on the creativity side, staring down the Amulet player that's got a grip full, at least 5 cards. They're going to be now looking for a threat, right? Their first threat with our bear didn't work out, so now it's like, okay, what other line can we go to try to close this game out? We don't have the pieces we need for a Valakut win, so it looks like we're trying to go for a different route here, especially with the ability to give a creature haste. That seems to be the case with a Cultivator Colossus. So we're going to be able to put a land into play, draw a card. Oh, and that's it. Just one land. Normally, this is like a dump type of deal where you like dump 4 or 5 cards. Of course, Colossus will be able to eat the Wrenn and 6, which is really nice of, messing with our opponent's land drops. We've got some tokens here. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. But Cultivator is based on the land's name, right? Cultivator Colossus. Power and toughness are equal to the number of lands you control. Okay, so yeah. It is just equal to the number of lands you control. It does have trample as well, so be aware of that. It get pretty scary. All right, another Ren and 6 going to help us get a land. And we're going for this, like, Adventures of the Dwarven Mine cycling. We're just going to keep building up. We are in time, and it is turn. So you see the little dice in the center. You're like, it's only been 40 minutes. Well, we cut out all the sideboard time and all that stuff. So yes and no. Urza Saga search going off. And we're going to get an expedition map, and we're going to just shortcut and do some tutoring for a land. So I like seeing the way stuff is set up here of, first two games were very much on the Valakut lines. This game has been on the big dumb dudes, Cultivator Colossus, our bear, right? We're trying this route to close out the game, and it's nice to see the diversity within games that the Amulet can go, because oftentimes you see the same lines over and over again, and the redundancy of how, like, here's the way that I win. I either win through Valakut, I'm either going to win through land looping, I'm either going to win through doing a big dumb dude, right? So here's one of the sideboard, like, big dumb dudes, Dramoka, actually, Dragon Lord Dramoka. And that's why we have it at 25. I must have changed the life total early in this series. Hey, spoilers for anybody that was paying attention. Life totals are now up to date with being at 25. So, flyer coming in, and then we've got our Cultivator Colossus swinging in big damage. And look at this. Here's the attack sequence this way. So, Dramoka is going to kill off Ren, and then we will be seeing, of course, Cultivator going to be hitting big hits there for 9, dropping our Creativity player down to 4. So, they really got to top deck some creativity here to go, right? All right, let's see. Lots of tokens. Nothing else, though. Yeah, we gotta dig here, I guess. We're gonna... Yeah, let's draw a card. Hope that we can be able to search up and find a Leyline Binding or something. Like, always look for your outs. Maybe you get a Teferi to do a bounce or something. A Transmogrify here, and it costs 4. Like, even Indomitable Creativity we need 4 mana for. Hey, here's a prime time to just kind of wrap it up. Let's make sure that we can win this game 100% here on turn 4 in extra time. All right, going through the motions, getting the lands that we need. Presenting cuts, good to go. We've also have our mirror pull so we can make a copy. Give this haste. Swinging in. Triggers. Lots of tramples coming around. This is the, we know that we've killed our opponent, but it's all this, like, skilled player of being very clear, hey, I'm not giving you any information. I still have 4 cards in hand. I'm going to let you go through these motions. Surprise, here's a fog. No, there's no fog. There's no fog in creativity. But, like, it's this skilled players that can be able to clearly navigate and go through. Hey, let's go through some blockies. Blocky, no blocking for the 5 flying damage that I can't block. And, oh, don't forget, there's all this trample damage coming across as well. Is the Cultivator has trample. Yep, that is true. And there it is. That's tough for our creativity player, but interesting to see from the Amulet side the setup here for the big different lines with our big dumb dudes there. But hope you guys enjoyed that one. A little bit of a brick there in game 3 for a creativity player, but still good setup of lines, and always exciting to see these two decks battle it out in this series here. So I hope you guys have been enjoying. Again, remember, new special episode coming out on Saturday. It's an interview stuff. Let me know what you guys think of it, and as well as more games coming out every Monday and Thursday for the foreseeable future. But that's going to do it for us here today over at NanMan's Nerd Corner. Thanks so much for tuning in and watching, and I'll see you all next game.